Hi, I'm Yaakov Katz, and welcome to the Jewish People's Podcast by JPPI. On Thursday night, a pogrom took place on the streets of Amsterdam. It was anti-Semitism at its finest and ugliest. Hundreds of youth, Arabs and North African, attacked Israeli fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv who were in the city for a soccer match. Videos of the attack spread widely. They showed gangs beating people just because they were Israeli and Jewish. So close to the anniversary of Kristallnacht, it was hard to ignore that this was Europe of the 1930s, but it was happening in 2024, at a time when Europe is meant to be liberal, progressive, democratic, and safe for Jews. The problem is that it is not. Israel has already warned its citizens not to travel to Italy for another upcoming soccer match, and Israelis across Europe have been told to not openly identify as Israeli or Jewish and to be extra vigilant. While Dutch politicians, as well as political leaders from across Europe, condemn the attack, much more than words is needed now. Action is required to stop this wave of anti Semitism, and countries need to formulate actionable plans that can prevent this from ever happening again. On today's episode, we take a look at what happened in Amsterdam. I first speak with Micha Zweibach, who moved to Amsterdam 6 years ago with his wife and children from Israel. Micha talks about the feeling in the community and how they've been coping with what happened. I then speak to Dr. Dov Maimon, my JPPI colleague and a world expert on European Jewry and anti-Semitism. Dov shared his assessment of the situation in Europe and what practical steps governments there, as well as Israel, need to take to fight back. Here we go. Micha, thank you so much for being with us. Thanks for taking out the time. You've been living in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam now, for about 6 years. You came from Israel with your wife, your kids. I'm curious to start off with what happened on Thursday night on the streets of Amsterdam. I was actually in Amsterdam over the summer. It was a beautiful visit, beautiful city. We had a great time. But I'm curious, as a local, as somebody who lives there, how surprised were you by what happened?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Yeah, how surprised? We were surprised, but not too surprised. I think it's been on the wall. We've known anti-Semitism has been going up lately. I think what surprised us most is the organization, not the regular anti-Semitic things that you see, which is obviously not good, but the surprising part is how organized they were and the scale of it. That surprised us and kind of scared us all. So at the moment, we're still trying to understand where it came from and where it's going. So everyone's kind of on hold at the moment in the region or in our city, to see where this is going and how the authorities will take care of it to know what the future will bring forward.
How big is the Jewish community in Amsterdam that you're part of?
I don't know exactly, but I would say at least more than 10,000.
Mhm.
Probably a lot more, and you could split it between the Jewish community and the Israeli community. So it's important to know that it's two different communities. We try to integrate together because at the end of the day, there's only one Jewish school, there's only one rabbanut here. But from a cultural perspective, two different communities. And you could probably say there are thousands or maybe tens of thousands Israelis versus thousands or tens of thousands of Jewish Dutch.
Mhm.
And days like Friday morning kind of connected us in that from that perspective as well, because we all felt in danger. We all felt in the need to go help our our other Jews and Israelis.
So, what happened in the aftermath? And we kind of all know what happened, and you're saying the organization of it was what surprised. And I think that's, like a lot of people have been saying, for example, you've seen this in the media, that the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, some of them were pulling down Palestinian flags and they were yelling and hurling uh, curse words maybe at some of the other people and Arabs who were on the streets there. So as if like they asked for it, as if this was a response to it. But really, this was something that was very much organized, and you saw that in WhatsApp groups and between the taxi drivers and things like that. So I'm curious, in the day after, Did people in were the leaders of the community reaching out to members? Were they giving instructions? Was something happening at the school where your kids go? Like, what was going on, and what were you being told as just a member of the community?
Um, yeah, so we were basically told that, yeah, it was pre-organized and the community was telling us to send to schools as regular, not to be scared, etc. Um, but on the other hand, I don't think anyone knows yet. It's still too early to say. The investigation is still ongoing, and a lot of reports are coming out. We do know that the Maccabi fans that were there, they were not behaving the best. All right, let's put the thing straight out there. We don't know if it was organized before or not. And the fans that were there, they were singing out loud. They were tearing down flags. They were chanting what Maccabi fans do. Not a reason whatsoever to do it happen at all. No excuses whatsoever. But that is kind of the discussion that's going on right now. Trying to understand, all right, so people are coming from abroad and they're provoking an area which it has such a big Muslim community. And for us, we're used to walking around. You see Palestinian flags everywhere, the same as you'll see sometimes an Israeli flag. Some brave people do that. And that's the thing about the Dutch. They respect each other. The liberal is what is basically keeps the community here. And that's also one of the reasons I love living here. You live and do what you want, and you're accepted. And then, of course, when the Israelis came in, or I would say the Maccabi fans, I don't know how to put it, and tearing down flags and chanting and making really a big fuss, I'm sure it extra provoked. If it was organized before or not, we're seeing the WhatsApps, we're seeing the Uber drivers. It seems like it was, but I'm sure the way they provoked it made it a lot worse. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I'm curious, as a father to kids, obviously this is something I'm guessing came up over Shabbat, at the Shabbat table, came up with the kids, talk about it. Maybe at school they were discussing it. What do you say to your children after something like that? Nowadays kids see everything. They see it on their phones. It's all over TikTok, all over Instagram. What do you tell them?
Well, we're basically talking about the 1930s. That's how we feel. Kristallnacht. I mean, this is exactly Kristallnacht. What I think is November 8th, and this happened on the
Yeah,
9th.
it was just the anniversary, right?
Just the anniversary, exactly. That same night, I don't know if you know, there was a Kristallnacht in the Pich synagogue. So the big, great synagogue. The same night, there was a whole ceremony, a lot of VIPs over there. So that's the direction that I took the discussion with my kids. Try to resemble what happened in the 30s, try to understand that no matter what, anti-Semitism is there. We didn't talk about being scared. We didn't talk about not showing your identity. The opposite is true. That's how I raise my kids. Be proud of who you are. Don't be scared. Walk around. Yeah. Look around. Make sure you're safe. Of course, we're still living here in Amsterdam when we see how they don't really like us. But yeah, keep your identity and always remember, never forget. Meaning also always be ready for unexpected.
So I'm curious, somebody, you've lived there now for a bunch of years. The anti-Semitism, and I was reading a study earlier today that was taken a few years ago that showed how about 50% of Dutch Jews have felt anti-Semitism or experienced or been the victim of some sort of, whether it could be a comment or a physical anti-Semitic attack or whatever it might be. But obviously, anti-Semitism, it's no secret, is up around the world and, of course, across Europe. A lot of people say it's because of the migrants or the immigrants, right? It's the immigrants who come from Arab countries, North Africa. We see that in what happened on Thursday night, that a lot of it seemed to have, if not all of it, was carried out by youth from Arab descent or North African descent. Do you make a distinction between let's say, the white Dutch and the immigrant Dutch community?
That's a very good question. I think the answer is yes, but it also depends on what area they come from. It's very, very different. So the more they're in Amsterdam area, bigger cities, the more liberal they say they are. Then when you actually come and talk to them, you realize underneath, they all have these old anti-Semitic thinking without even knowing it. They
Right.
are liberal. They are for us. They love Israel, but deep down they come and they see you. The first thing's like, oh, your nose isn't big, you must be rich. That kind of stuff just like comes out without them even thinking. I'm looking at them like, you realize that's an anti-Semitic remark. It's like, oh shit. That's how they react. So without even knowing it underneath, they still have it. Yes, but of course we distinguish between the new Europeans, I would call it, and the white Europeans. But I think it's still there. And if something happens, I would never trust them personally.
So you recently decided, you and your wife, to send to your two older kids to Israel for high school, right? Get to not to go to school in Amsterdam. Is that because of just the lack of Jewish education there, or you were looking for something more than that?
Um, well, it started from a bad education. We did not like the educational system here in the Netherlands, so our I would never send my kid not to a Jewish school. So a lot of people send to public schools, different situation. And by the way, they have a lot more, of course, anti-Semitism, and they feel it a lot more. But me personally, myself and my wife, we decided to go only to the Jewish school to keep our Jewish identity, no matter how far we are. And the specific school, there's only one high school, so we don't really have much choice of where to send. And yeah, my oldest son, didn't really manage that well in school. He managed in a certain way, but the education wasn't what we wanted to provide him as parents. And then we encountered this Irgun Nale. So it's organization from the Sukhnut of Israel, where they basically try to get the kids back to Israel. They study in Israel in boarding school, and they come back every few months. We go to them every few months, but they get good Israeli education, what we call melech haaretz type of education, and each kid
Salt of the earth. Yes.
salt of the earth. Yeah, and that's what I'm searching. That's what I want my kids to have, just like I grew up with. I grew up with that education. I chose not to live in Israel at the end, but I do feel like that made me who I am. And perhaps it would also make them go, or they'll choose to go to the IDF. I hope that will happen as well. I must say, I am a minority here in the Netherlands and in the Israeli community. When it comes to that, people think I'm crazy. People do not want to send their kids to the IDF. And they're very much against Israel right now. I mean, at least the government at the moment. So you really, really feel that. So I think I am a minority, but from my perspective, I think it's the number one. The education in Israel is the best. I would really like them to go to the IDF. I'm not sure I would want them to live there, though. At the end of the day, with all the issues here, with all the anti-Semitism that we have here, the overall life here is still better. I still don't think we're in any danger at the moment. I mean, we don't know what will happen, but overall, I think life here at the moment is better and even safer. We know it's not that safe in Israel as well.
So I mean, that's kind of the question I was going to ask you. Was, October 7th was a wake up call to a large extent in Israel, with obviously security issues and how to manage Hamas and Hezbollah and things like that. Was it? Did it do? Did you sense the change also in the community, and in what way?
First of all, a lot more awareness. The community suddenly came together. If before October 7th, yeah, we had the school, we had, the kids groups, the friends. But after October 7th, suddenly we became more of a community. We have each other's backs. All right, I'll tell you the story, what happened basically on Friday. I don't know if people know what happened on Friday after the pogrom, we would call it, Friday morning. So we had thousands of Israelis stuck in hotels, right? They were scared to leave their hotels. They needed to go to the airport. They needed to go to flights, and they were told not to go on Ubers. So they were in a situation of thousands of people that had no way of getting to the airport, and they were scared to leave the door. So the Israeli community and the Dutch community as well tried to also go in. We organized a Hamal, a war room, together with the Chabad and with Maccabi Netherlands, and we organized groups of drivers. So personally, myself and I think tens of other families, probably more, we found ourselves driving from like 7 a.m. until Saturday the next day, whoever could, driving people from hotel rooms to the airport, going inside hotel rooms, knocking on the doors, speaking to them, telling them, hey, everything's okay. We're here to speak to them in Hebrew, show them our ID, say, you're okay. We're here to take you to the airport. And I think before October 7th, there was never such a thing of a community like that. This whole community was formed after October 7th because we felt so unsafe. So we started grouping up together in a sort of way like, hey, we can't trust anyone. We need to trust ourselves. And it was a really, really beautiful thing to see the arvut adadit, as we say.
The coming together.
Yeah.
Well, Micha, I want to thank you very much for joining us, and thank you I guess for what you do on behalf of helping out definitely those Israelis who were stuck in those hotel rooms after the Maccabi Tel Aviv so-called pogrom. And stay safe to you, your kids, your wife, and everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So, Dov, it's great to have you back on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. And you're actually, as if we couldn't tell that you're in Bordeaux, we have the wine behind us to remind us that you're in wine country in France. And somebody who's really been one of the, I would say, greatest experts on anti-Semitism in Europe and really observing what's happening there. What I'm curious to start with is how much has the writing been on the wall for what happened in Amsterdam over the weekend?
Yeah, I just want to say that in Bordeaux, a small city with very tiny Jewish community, and if I hear at Limud Festival with hundreds and hundreds of people coming, is because after October 7, there is a push and pull factors that the Jews want to be together. They feel loneliness and they come together. And why they feel loneliness is because anti-Semitism. So anti-Semitism everywhere in Europe. Every place when I make lectures, and every day I have a lot of lectures, and every day I have 300 people, 400 people coming to my lectures, whatever the subject, could be geopolitics, could be Talmud or Kabbalah, whatever. So people come just to be together. So they feel so alone. So it's very important to understand that. So what we have seen in Holland is just something that could spark everywhere in Europe. I spoke with people from Corsica this week, how to organize in case we have a big pogrom in France, how we'll take all these people to a island in south of France called Corsica, where I really love the Jews. And these people told me, we have all the boats, we have all the hotels, welcome, we can accept 50,000 Jews coming to your country, and we'll take care of you, at least for 3 months. For 3 or 4 months. So it's something that we are really, it's written on the wall. It
like
could happen
Jews,
everywhere.
in other words, what you're saying is Jews are starting to plan, at least with regards to Corsica, how to move quickly to an island to escape an attack if that were to happen.
We have to difference between what some people who are aware do and what the official French. I was with a French rabbi, chief rabbi of France. He said everything is okay, Macron is under control. But if you look good, what happened? You see that the police didn't do nothing on Thursday night. They've seen what happened and they did not intervene. And we don't expect in France that something similar to happen. So what is a lot of problem. We all know we'll know more and more about what happened in Holland, in Amsterdam. We know that the people have the addresses of the Jews. They know where the Israeli, in which hotel they are, and working with, it's a network. It's something they plan. They know the hotels, they know the address, they know the taxi, know the place, the VTC, know the places. And so what happened, it's something that could happen everywhere in Europe. It could happen very fast. If you want, and I want to give you few figures about France. About France, we have 580 people who have been fighters in Daesh and have been in jail and finished with jail in France, and they're free. And nobody is controlling what these people are. And not become, very nice lady today. They still have everyone is his neighborhood is feeling people like look at this guy as the gibor, as the hero, the one that killed and raped and so on. All people looking at them. So we have in France about the Jew. I speak about France and we'll go back to Holland in a few minutes. But in France, we have more than 10 million Muslims, and about them, 28% of the Muslims are radical Muslims. They want Sharia for France. So what is going to happen? What is going to happen? So we know, and we have 28% of all the Muslims in France who are radical Muslims. They want Sharia. And about the young people, this is much more tragic for us. 55% are for that. So the people who are really third generation in France, they are much more radical than their parents. And the more they're educated, we expect that education could be better. The education is not working this way. The education will take the people to be even worse, because the more they're educated, all the teachers in geography and history, a lot of them come from this population, and they teach the Muslim narrative about history. And so we are in a very, the situation is not getting better. So do the Jews plan? No, they don't plan so much. Some people inside the community, beside the official community, who say we trust Macron in France, some people say we know that we have to be ready. And I'm working with evangelical. You know that
Right.
I'm expert in evangelical, so I'm working with them. They're also working with us. I'm working with Christian people and a lot of people. We have a lot of people who have let's say the real France behind that. They don't like what is happening and they're ready to help.
But I want to take you back a moment to Holland. So just
Please.
specifically there, I was reading one report which spoke about how 50%, a study that was done, 50% of respondents, so Jews, had experienced anti-Semitism there in recent years. I mean, it's also there. You have maybe not Daesh, but you have a lot of people, North African immigrants who have moved there, who are actually driving those taxis, driving those Ubers, who are working in those jobs. I mean, how much has the writing been on the wall there for this to happen, from what you know about Holland and the Dutch community?
I will put it in a blunt way. We are like in the 6th of October in Europe. I mean, nothing happened on 5th of October, nothing happened on 4th of October, nothing happened on 3rd of October. But as an expert, as a JPPI expert, if I come to the French, I speak French because here I'm more in France today, and I'm working, I'm really very involved at the moment in France, but it's the same, really similar thing. When I'm in Amsterdam, it's really the same thing. When I'm in London, it's the same thing. And when I'm in Belgium, it's really the same thing. But just telling you, what if I say to the people, you are in danger, people are going to laugh at me. Because, and if I tell there is a risk, they said, this guy is just alarmist. He said that something could happen. It never happened. He told us last week that it could happen this week. It didn't happen. So what, this guy is crazy. So I don't say that. I say we have to be aware. We have to be ready for all scenarios. I cannot say nothing because nobody is going to trust us. So it's very difficult. So we have to be aware. We have to have a plan B. We have to be plan B. We need to have something else, but we are not really ready, and nobody is really taking care. I mean, so I think not so much the organized Jewish community.
What do you, the French government or the Dutch government or the British government, what would you expect to see them do in light of all that's been happening? What would you want them to take steps in exactly?
You're asking the right question, Yaakov. Since I arrived on Monday, I met with dozens of activists who are really, they haven't been activists before. Since the 7th of October, they feel so alone. So they wanted to do something and then start new startup operation initiative, civil society initiative. And when at some point I asked them, okay, you're working 24 hours a day and you do a lot of things. You take out posters in the street. You put posters of hostages on the street, and you do that. What do you expect? What is your best scenario? Do you have a best scenario? And say, oh, I don't know your question. I don't think such a way. I said, but Henry Kissinger said, if you don't know where to go, there's few chances that you get there. So please, where you want to be? And then we'll think how to go there. I say, we don't know any reason. We have nothing to do. So when you ask me your question, and what could and they know that the police, when you have more than 20 times more Muslim than Jews, and these people are very violent, they could be a lot, they could threat to have riots everywhere in Holland, in Paris, in Belgium. These people want to have they just want to avoid riots. So for sure they are not going to protect the Jews. They are not going to protect, but to sacrifice the government and to take a risk that the government will be bad. don't forget that there is Islamists in Europe work with soft power and hard power. Hard power is with indigenous terrorism, with like people who have been in Daesh and today they are free. We have also exogenous terrorism, people from Iran, from Hamas, and from other places, from Khorasan and so on. There are a lot of people with violence and terrorist people. And we have also, and the threat to make riots everywhere, so people are afraid. And then we have soft power. Soft power is the Muslim Brothers. In France, there are 3 million people. So these people, they're taking all the position in the government everywhere. They go with the president everywhere. They have taken all the welfare state apartment program. They control everything more and more. So, and if you want to have, they want to avoid violence, they have to give them more and more space for this.
So it's
Muslim
basically
brothers.
it's almost like extortion. In other words, if you don't give them what they want, they will launch riots, there'll be violence. So governments are afraid to actually confront these
I can give
radical
you a small,
elements.
Yeah, I give you just a small example. But it's very simple. I just made once on I24 News, and it was 360,000 views. What I say during the Olympic Games, I say, that's interesting that Macron has taken the Qatari police to protect and think that it was not cars from the Qatari, but it was cars from the Israeli army who protect that. You explain what could happen in France. People will burn these cars. And when we say that Qatar which is providing money to Hamas and is also providing to all the Muslim Islamists in Europe, is going billions of dollars to the Islamist activists all Europe. And they saw the bank for Macron is buying, and they have a PSG, you know, about what maybe you have seen what I've done on PSG.
Paris Saint-Germain, the
Paris Saint-Germain,
yeah.
and they say Palestine, there will be war there. And
our American listeners don't know necessarily what PSG is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the big soccer league of Paris is with Qatar. So we understand what it's a kind of extortion. It's a kind of protection. It's a kind. When you take Qatar to protect the Olympic Games, we have no problem, no problem, because the Muslims understand that Qatar is on our side, and we have some soldiers of Qatar going in the street in Paris.
So
we have a lot of, but I want to tell you something else. There is a very good wine in Bordeaux, very nice food, 215 very nice restaurant in Paris. Everywhere I come there, and I've been at the wedding, I've been a lot of meetings, very nice restaurant, crazy life on the sur les bords de la Seine. You know, we have a so nice life, so it's very strange for the Jews. In some way,
how many kosher restaurants in Paris?
250 and very top level. It's really crazy. You cannot imagine.
I've been to several very nice ones, but I didn't realize it was 250.
Yeah.
Dov, I want to ask you though, in the aftermath of what happened in Amsterdam. Now, obviously, there's a it was very it was described right away as a pogrom. The videos were horrific. To see Israelis and Jews trampled and beaten on the streets of Europe, of course, is always going to bring back the worst of memories of what used to happen in Europe to Jews. But there was, of course, there were a couple of things that happened. One was condemnations across the board from, of course, the Dutch government, the other leaders across Europe, Macron and other leaders all condemned what had happened. And there were, of course, attempts by some people to try to say, well, they started, the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans began, they were the ones who instigated this. But when you even if they did bad things, my explanation to people was, even if they did bad things, and it's possible they did, this was a coordinated assault. It wasn't as if it was just a response to what a few hooligans on the Israeli side did. So that pushes it away. But I am curious, when you look at the across the board condemnations, does that give you some hope?
You have to make a difference between the discourse and the acting. What do they act? Did they stop? Did they take these people in jail? Did the police intervene to stop them? Not even fire on them, but just to stop them, just to tell something, how to arrest these people when they see what happened. And they see what happened and they don't do nothing. So maybe just because they are low to act, but it's not only that. It's also they receive some direction not to do nothing. We have seen that with Sarah Halimi. We have seen that in other places. With Sarah Limi, it was 23 policemen, and for three quarters of an hour, the guy was beating this woman, Sarah Limi, old woman of 65, 70, 65, and then kill her by the window. And the police didn't do nothing. They say, we didn't receive order. We don't know what to do. How you hear him, you are a shaitan, you everything. So the Jews don't trust Macron after what he has said in Lebanon. They feel they have been betrayed by Macron because he wants to have this. He's afraid of the riots. He's afraid of Qatar. Is Holland? We can expect a backlash. This is what we can expect. The positive scenario could be a backlash. And then, Jacob, if we have to think about what will be, is a backlash a good thing for the Jews? And I'm not sure it will be. It will be against the Muslim, but it will be also maybe against the Jews too.
In other words, what you're saying is backlash. If there's a crackdown on the Muslim community, it could hurt actually the Jewish community, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we don't know what could. For the moment, if we go to Islamization, it will be submission. It will be a kind that the government just surrender to the Muslim, and they just give them more and more space, more and more power. They will make the Ramadan month a month of like Chol HaMoed. You know, they will say that it will be like a festival. People can walk, cannot walk. This is what they ask at the moment. You know, they want to take the pharmacy sign to put instead of a cross to do something else, and to make more multicultural. They want to have more and more space, and they're asking more and more space everywhere. And to have a Muslim festival in France and in Holland, in Belgium, everywhere. And so this is, they work step by step. But at the end of the day, so at some point you could be, there is a red line. Maybe when they stop the red wine, you know, they ask the people, don't, it will be the red line. People, if you cannot drink all of the wine we have here, so it's a lot of money. You know what I have behind me now? And people will say, come back. They will go back to the French people. Remember that right. Europe, I speak of France because I'm here now, but I want to tell you that in France, in Europe, during the Second World War, 75% of the Jews have been killed. In France, 75% of the Jews have been saved by French people. Every people I go in the street, a lot of French people come to me and say, we are with you. We don't accept what is happening. So there is something about the popular. 72% of the people in France are afraid that October 7th could happen in France. So we have to understand it's not, it could be a backlash. A backlash right. could be at some point the French, the old France, not the new France with all the migrants, where 23% of all the newborns, you know, are Muslim names. So it's not just a small, it's not a tiny minority. It's 23% of all the newborns have Muslim names. So it's something serious. And then these people could say, we don't want this change of our identity. We want to be back. We want to make France great again. It's not at the moment they are not there, but we have seen a backlash against wokeism in America. We can expect a movement like that in Europe.
A similar movement, yeah.
It will be a blessing or not. It's really a big question we are not discussing now.
Well, you're already seeing the shift to the political right within parts of Europe, but I want to ask you to wrap up, Dov. In JPPI's recent annual assessment, you wrote the chapter on three-dimensional anti-Semitism, and you had a couple of recommendations. I want to ask you specifically about two. Two of the recommendations, one was to provide security for vulnerable communities. So who should be providing that security? And the second recommendation, was that Israel, it's time it comes up with a coordinated strategy for how to combat anti-Semitism. Some people would say, what do you mean? Israel's helping. They sent a plane. They brought back people. But that's not what you're referring to. So explain to us, please, what are those two recommendations?
Yeah. First, we have to understand that if you don't know where to go, you have few chances to get there. So we have to know where we want to go. If we want to protect the Jews, it's not just a small effort. You have to do something very big. I'm here at the Limud Festival. There is no police on the door. We are in big hotel. And so you understand that people can enter the hotel with a bag, and inside the bag with a Kalashnikov. Who is going to check that? So I'm an Israeli with someone that's been in Israeli army. I'm looking all that. I say, it's not serious. So is it serious? No, it could not be serious because people don't understand. We have no direct connection between the security and the police. We need to have a direct connection working together, and it will not happen until it does happen a big accident. So when we say we need a strategic plan, means that we have to think where we want to go and how we get there and who is going to do that. It's very simple, like every project that we do in the world, what you are used to do and I'm used to do when we have a big company or when you have something. And it's not done this way. And the Israeli government, if they want to stop, and for the moment, at the moment, we didn't succeed to mitigate anti-Semitism. It's going worse and worse. So we have to think something is wrong. We have to think again.
So far, it's a failure. I mean, let's be honest, right? We're not succeeding. Neither the state of Israel nor Jewish communities around the world are not succeeding, despite awareness, despite more graphs and more studies and more seminars and conferences, and the numbers go up. They don't go down.
You're right. We can always say that if we didn't do that, it could have been worse. But let's say that it didn't succeed. Like with COVID, you say we have done a lot of effort, could be worse. But come on the day we want to stop the COVID, we want to stop anti-Semitism. What is going to be? What are the tools we need to stop the COVID? What we have the tools to stop the anti-Semitism? So we have to identify and to work according to a proper, and someone has to be in charge. And someone has to be in charge, someone has to be with resources to do that. It should be an international effort, and someone has to take care of all that. And this is what the JPPI is involved in that, because we believe that we have a kind of a whole. Nobody's taking care of that. So we have to be somewhere, has to be in charge, or coordinate all the actors. A lot of actors who is doing very well, a lot of things. And I say it's full gas in neutral. A lot of time I'm asking all these people, I'm meeting a lot of activists, and I'm doing that and that and that. And they say, okay, what do you expect? What you can achieve with that? And they say, oh, we don't know. I just want to be in dignity. This is the word that people tell me. I want to go in the street and not to hide that I'm Jewish. And I want to keep my mezuzah. I'm very proud that I keep my mezuzah on my door. Most of my friends have taken it away. I said, okay, so what do you expect? What would happen in 10 years from now? I don't know. Do you think your grandchildren would stay in France? I say, I don't ask my question. I sign up questions. So people don't think a kind of strategic thinking. And there are people in business. In their own business, they do strategic thinking. When they speak about their own life, they don't do it. It's a bit strange some way. But if you look at Israel, do we have a strategic plan for Israel? Do we know where we are? We are studying at the Torah this week about Abraham. Do you think Abraham has a plan where he wants to go? Do you think Moses has a plan when he went out of Egypt? Do you think Herzl has a plan? We don't really work with plan. We work with intuition. We want to do something that we feel a calling, a beruf, calling inside. You want to do something about your dignity, about what you want to do. And the JPPI is trying to organize that and to make it also a plan. So this is, we have to first to understand. That's the reason I'm really meeting with so many people, understanding, acting. I published a book. You will maybe put the photo of my book. It has been distributed in France, 20,000 people. I do training for people how to act against anti-Semitism. I brought people here this week and asked them what the question who make you hard when you hear them, and when they say Israel is apartheid, Israel is genocide, when they say, oh, it's very interesting, because in my book with Gil Troy, it's really taking every question and give 10 bullets what we have to answer, all that. And it's really everything inside the book. So that's very funny. So that reason they like the book. It's really a companion book for all these people, and they use it. I invite me, if I could work, I could be every week in France, because they asked me to be with the students here and students here. Right. I'm not going to be there, but I just tell them that I will maybe in Zoom. But important to all this effort. We have a lot to do. We can do much more, but we have also to where we want to be, where we want to be in 10 years from now. Right. Where do you expect
that challenge of setting up that strategic plan is something that we know in Israel always is a challenge on a lot of different issues, whether it's the war right now or it's anything else that's happening. But of course, I can imagine that for anyone around the world, these are always going to be issues. So Dov, Let me thank you very much for taking out some of the time from enjoying some of that that red wine that, if I can make it out behind you, taking a break from drinking some of that to talk to us about these important
It's
issues.
not all kosher, so it's not. I told them, don't. You have no risk. You can leave me one day.
I'll let you go back to the wine, Dov.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you very much. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. You can find us, as always, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and of course, the Times of Israel's website. We'll be back again on Thursday for another episode of the Jewish People's